So my name is Humberto Flores. I'm born and raised here in the Inland Empire. We're currently in Riverside. And a fun fact about me is growing up, I used to rap and make music.
Okay.
Yeah.
In my community work, I've had the privilege of meeting organizers, artists, policymakers, and researchers. And these conversations always seem to be informative, thought-provoking, and inspirational. So I wanted to use my platform to capture some of those conversations for you all. We'll call this one KG Platicas. How would you describe your childhood growing up in the Inland Empire?
I am a child of immigrant parents. My parents are from Jalisco, Mexico. And actually, my mother just gained citizenship status a month ago. I mean, we definitely struggled in the beginning. My dad had to work like 3 jobs back to back, and my mom worked in the warehouses out here. And I remember as a child going to work with my dad. He cleaned the office, so I would go tag along with him, and we would hide in the closet, my brothers and I, until like everybody left the building at night, and then we would come out and just like help him clean and stuff.
Beto was born and raised in the Inland Empire, Riverside, California to be exact, a city 55 miles east of Los Angeles. And after graduating from UCLA, go Bears, he pursued his Ph.D. at the University of California, Riverside, where he would focus in on the region and populace that would become his research area of interest.
Here in the Inland Empire is definitely difficult for a lot of people, especially young children growing up. There's not a lot of opportunities. People are like funneled into warehouses. I feel like there's a very low educational attainment rate here. And I feel like a lot of the people that I grew up with had a better chance of like being incarcerated than going to college. And I'm one of the few people in my circle who got a college education. There's a lot of low-income communities here, a lot of Black and Latinx communities. A lot of people migrated from the beach cities nearby, so like LA, Orange County, San Diego.
We all know neighborhoods vary greatly within a city, and when comparing cities in California, the differences between race, class, and infrastructure can vary dramatically from one region to the next. For many, this distinction can be drawn between California's coastal cities and inland regions. The IE is often overlooked in many regards, but how have you come to see the lack of resources for youth in the region influence life outcomes?
Right. So first, I agree, the Inland Empire is very overlooked. And that's the reason why I chose to focus my research here in the Inland Empire, because a lot of research focuses on Los Angeles, New York City, Chicago, and I wanted to shed light on the Inland Empire. When I was at UCLA as an undergrad, I noticed that there was a lot of freshmen coming in from LA, and so I feel like they have a lot of resources to help them get, even though they come from low-income communities, they have a lot of resources to get to universities like that. And it's not the same with Riverside. Like when I was there, I never really met like freshmen that were from Riverside or from the Inland Empire. So I feel like we lack a lot of resources. In those major cities, they also have a lot of youth organizations, youth coalitions, and I feel like we lack that here. There's a lot that are starting to arise now, but we definitely need a lot more of those coalitions and fellowship for kids to aspire to go to college and also to stay out of trouble. So that's my goal, and that's one of the reasons why I came back to the Inland Empire, because I wanted to come back and serve my community.
What connections have you seen from the schooling system and the prison system when it comes to youth in the IE?
School policies like promote and facilitate and feed into the school to prison pipeline. And I'll give an example of that. Like in my school, they didn't allow us to wear white shirts. Growing up, I would go to the swap meet and buy shirts, you know, like pro clubs, and they were affordable, and white was like a color I really liked, you know, and blue was a color I really liked, and all these colors that were banned. I recall like going to school, even in a South Pole shirt, like I was disciplined for having a South Pole shirt. And not only that, but there's also cops on school campuses, right? On high school campuses, on middle school campuses. So I feel like that, like their zero tolerance policies, like the shirt thing that I talked about, and having the cops on campus and like resorting to them, like really facilitates and feeds into the school to prison pipeline. And in addition to that, you know, like when girls get pregnant, like they would send them to continuation schools, right? And like even for truancy, like criminalizing truancy and not being able to make it to class on time, to school on time, and being disciplined for that, all of those policies contribute to the school to prison pipeline. Yeah.
So growing up, what were your interactions with police like in your community, and what role did you see them playing in your community?
Yeah. I had various interactions with law enforcement in my community. So in my community, specifically in Paris, the sheriffs were the ones that patrolled my neighborhood, and they had different like task force. They had gang task force, gang unit, and all that, and they often targeted people that looked like myself. So I regularly got stopped, like for no reason, racially profiled, you know, and I feel like their role was to like, or their goal, they're kind of like neighborhood bullies, so like they instill fear in the community. I've had plenty of instances where I'm just riding my bike and I'm getting pulled over, and like gang unit lifts my shirt up, like looks at my clothing, and you know, ask questions and stuff like that, like if I'm involved in a gang. I've had like very unpleasant experiences with them. Like I've had guns to my face, you know, like physical force. Like, yeah, I've had a lot of experiences with law enforcement.
What was it like being in college classrooms, ethnic studies, sociology, political science, and learning how communities like yours were created by design?
Yeah, it was definitely like eye-opening. So when I first got to college, I was able to like identify things that I was experiencing as, for example, racial profiling. I didn't know it was racial profiling. Like I was in a car driving with my cousins, and you know, it's 5 brown boys in there, and then we get pulled over, searched. Like it was my dad's car, ripped the car apart, you know what I mean? Like, and I didn't know it was racial profiling. So when I was in school, I was able to add language to my experiences. And in addition to that, like noticing like my community, as I mentioned, it's the Inland Empire, but it's often referred to as the warehouse empire because they're building a lot of warehouses out here. And Amazon is like a big contributor to the warehouses here. And like seeing the inequalities of like where they're placing those warehouses, and like where the neighborhoods are built, where like the train runs through, like in lower income neighborhoods, you know, and seeing that that was by design. I didn't take an ethnic studies class until I was an undergraduate at college, actually until I got to UCLA. So this is stuff that wasn't taught to me in the K through 12 curriculum. And I was finally like starting to open my eyes to a lot of the experiences.
Proper words to describe what's happening in your community. Like, how did that empower you?
Yeah, I mean, it empowered me a lot because now I have like a status, a Ph.D. student, and like I'm able to stand up for my community, which was something that I didn't have the power to do, and a lot of the folks here don't know they have the power to do. For example, the sheriffs requested a huge budget from the Riverside County. They want to buy 80 new, I think it's 80 or 60 new sheriff vehicles, you know, instead of investing in the community. So I'm able to like now add language and like email the board of supervisors and like let them know that they should divert that funding to like invest in communities, especially during the pandemic, which was something that I didn't have the power to do before. And like academia has empowered me to do that. But yeah, I think that's an example of a way that it has been empowering me and like getting me into certain spaces to like try to advocate for my community.
One of the most interesting things that I've come across in working with researchers that come from the communities like ours and have that lived experience is that they're able to understand what the systematic forces felt like both as an adolescent and vicariously through friendships and familial ties. And I believe this undoubtedly enhances their ability to humanize and make real those experiences for their readers. Tell the viewers about your research and why, out of all the different things you could have focused on, why you focused on your area of interest.
I'm currently doing a study on something called legal cynicism. And legal cynicism is basically the idea that communities have, they view the law and its enforcers, so like including police, as illegitimate and unresponsive. And I use a framework called legal estrangement, which looks at how communities are marginalized by the police. So there's things like procedural injustice, which is like firsthand experiences with police, and like negative experiences. There's vicarious marginalization, which basically marginalizes people from the law, like through a loved one, like, you know, a father, a brother, a sister, etc. And then structural exclusion, which is things like policies that exclude communities, like police failing to respond to calls, you know. So my research looks at, and it's focused in the Inland Empire. It's focused on the east side of Riverside and the north side of San Bernardino. And I have two populations. So I look at it how communities are marginalized by police, by race, ethnicity, and gender. So in the east side of Riverside, I have the Latinx community, and then in San Bernardino, I have the Black community. And it's sort of like looking at how the police marginalizes each community and how I became interested in it. So again, I had these firsthand experiences with the police. Like, I was being marginalized by law enforcement. And then when I got to UCLA doing work with like the $1 Million Hoods Project and policing in LA, I basically took the tools that I learned there and wanted to apply it here in the Inland Empire. So my personal experience as well as like my research jointly like influenced me to do some of that research.
Can you explain a little bit more about $1 Million Hoods?
Yeah, so the $1 Million Hoods Project is a research project based out of UCLA, out of the Bunch Center, and it's led by Dr. Kelly Lato Hernandez. And it basically maps the human and fiscal cost of incarceration in Los Angeles and beyond.
What kind of impact do you hope your research has in the academic space, but also in the community?
Right. Yeah, so my broader impact of the research, I hope it has an impact on both the academic and the broader like Inland Empire. So first, like I wanted to, like in academia, I wanted to like contribute. I want to contribute to the literature in terms of adding Latinx folks to like that literature, because it hasn't really been looked at in the legal estrangement research and the legal cynicism research. So I want to contribute to like that academic talk and seeing like how the trends differentiate. And then in terms of the community, I want to contribute, hopefully like share my findings with like local advocacy groups and have local policy changes, you know, just better the community. That'll be my goal, my long-term goal.
There is so much talent flourishing within our community, especially in academia, but there are very few platforms to uplift those voices. So I'm hoping to share with you some of the many people that I'm privileged to come across. Please let me know in the comments below if there's someone you think would be good to have a plática with.